Hi, I draw. This is my cousin.
Hi.
We both draw, but she's still learning the ropes and has plenty of questions for me because she knows I'll most likely have an answer.
Given that I've been drawing since I was little, and I love giving art advice where I can. Though there are aspects about my art and the way I do things that have become so second nature that it's difficult to explain why I do what I do without first understanding the origins of my inspiration. So I thought I'd make a video about it.
I've had many things influence the way I draw, and they vary in so many instances that you could argue I have a bunch of art styles, but they're still all lemon drawing. So why do I get inspired by these things, and how do I implement them into the techniques I use to this day? To satiate my cousin's bloodlust towards me for having more experience, here's my style analysis so that the decisions I make in my art make some sense. And I get to talk about stuff I like, so fucking epic. With a passing glance at my art, you could probably safely assume I watched anime, and you'd be right. I don't watch as much as I used to, so my style is heavily influenced by things I haven't engaged with in quite a while. Like, one of the biggest reasons I tore my old art style to shreds is because of an anime I haven't even finished watching yet. The Bungo Stray Dogs art style had completely hooked me. The way they utilized the line weight to emphasize parts of the face was something I wanted to replicate in my own style. The lips being more pronounced than other anime styles I watched at the time looked cool to me. The way that I draw eyes to this day still stems from me learning that art style. I only noticed while researching for this video that I'd cling to my usual color palette because it has a lot in common with the show. The characters I made when I was still learning took notes on the simplistic silhouettes and not much going on in the leg area. Don't look at that, this is just a coincidence. It's surprising how much influence the show had on my artistic intuition, and this one I still remember because it lives to haunt me. This sin exists because of Soul Eater. I got real insecure about the amount of detail in my art since I never figured out how to draw necks, so I overcompensated. That accursed nose will never be forgotten. I like the triangle noses that they had and combined it with like little line nose things I saw on Instagram. It was a mess. I think it looks neat. I hate how much the show seeped into my art for several reasons, but it did give me some things to chew on. Keep in mind this was like my second anime like ever. I just liked how much impact a lot of the fight choreography had. It wasn't just some flashing fists, but some real strong gut punches, and that one scene that was real freaky and real well animated. I'm sure the angsty art was somewhat inspired by the crunchy, punchy, bloody stuff too. I can't draw fight scenes, but I sure can draw the aftermath. And for as much shit as I talk, some expressions are still pretty silly. On the note of expressions, Soul Eater definitely gave my art some good references, but it's not until later on when I watched Ouran High School Host Club for the third time, immaculate taste in media, trust me I know, that I stopped just stealing from the styles I liked, and instead trying to learn through practice and studying a bit more properly. I like the way they push and pull the mouth to make funky looking faces, and the way they utilize negative space for hands really stuck through my art journey. Ouran became one of the first anime I did legitimate studies for, to commit their style conventions to memory. I've done quite a few studies for multiple art mediums, but before I can get to the good, I gotta talk about the bad. Really quick disclaimer, this is not a critique on either of the series I mentioned, just the art style that I combined them into. But I sure don't like them. Anyways, I do still believe Vivziepop's illustration style has great aspects to it. The parts that I noticed as a kid was how she broke up her hair strands, and her line of action is really strong. I also really liked her background style because it reminded me of a lot of the Y2K trends that were floating around, like Frutiger Metro is probably what I would describe it as, using a lot of gradients and lines and bubbles and stuff, which I would abuse the entire time. I still use and abuse gradients to this day. And I sure did adopt the painted on the feet approach to drawing shoes. And when I tell you that panty and stocking still has an iron grip on my current chibi style, when I was much too young to be watching this show, I like their big hands and legs with sharp edges, scrunched pug faces, and that shoulder up pose that I will use to the end of time. I think anime like this really pushed my later art style down the line to have shapes as hair instead of like hair strands, if that makes sense. And since these were my two favorite art styles at the time, what do you get when you cross these styles together as a 13-year-old who wanted to draw cats in their free time instead of learning basic human anatomy? A cautionary tale. Kinda wish I was inspired by literally anything else much sooner to not have 4 years of my life tainted by shitty cartoons. But alas, this is the life I gave myself.
For your anime inspirations, you adopted their facial proportions, utilized line art techniques, crafted character designs based on typical silhouettes, and people could still tell you how to wear your cat's face.
I will kill you. As much as the anime influence infected my old stylistic choices, it was the art that I've seen on social media that truly caused me to switch gears and really think about the artistic liberties I could be taking. Twitter sucks dong, but damn it, the artists there are cracked. Artists are super fucking good at what they do, and I'm basically a goblin collecting all the shiny new colors and line art techniques to add to my hoard. It's the biggest culprit for why I never feel like I have a dedicated style I draw in, but I have found some through lines in the art styles that I gravitate toward, and that stems from my old anime interests.
Bungo Stray Dogs guided me towards pieces with solemn-looking guys and places that allowed for dramatic lighting, maybe some fancy suits and neat embellishments. As long as the subject looked depressed or sly, it's up my alley. And Soul Eater's gothic aesthetic had me attracted towards those like early 2000s anime styles with big ol' eyes and frilly dresses. It also got me into character design and utilizing statement pieces like this girl's giant flowers contrasting the simple schoolgirl outfit. And things like my reference sheets and chibis are such a mishmash of whatever's in front of my face that those styles vary too often to find where those roots are. But I do have a list of artists that have inspired me so much that they basically like clung into the style that I have right now, and they're just kind of living in there. And since I'm so passionate about how they inspire me, I thought it'd be best to show that by drawing in their styles, with credit of course. I'll also talk about the techniques that I learned while drawing in their style, but fair warning, I don't know how to constructively word myself, so this'll be fun. To this day, I still use Wooma's art as a reference, or just to inspire me to draw, which, yeah, it's awful how much of a ripoff I am. I use these music videos as a reference because they're pretty iconic. Weirdo poses and crazy looking character designs. Hell yeah, I think my little guy fits right in. Fun fact, the black diamond I put on characters is a stylistic choice I stole from the Walls Walled music video. Mine now, no one was using it. Their body of work is often focused on a single subject in a cool pose, so it makes it look like you're scrolling through a catalog of magazines. It also kind of makes it noticeable that they have the same face sculpt for like almost every character they draw. While the expressions help to sell a different character entirely, like crazed bug eyes characters or moody broody guys, the hair helps differentiate them too, but that's like every anime style, I guess. Once I got in a groove, the face and hands were super easy to draw, but I didn't expect the hair to trip me up so much. They make it so detailed, and I think I could have done a better job had I used their technique of drawing right on top of their color blocking, but I hate doing that, so I struggled to avoid a struggle. I love their normal painterly pieces so much, but I specifically enjoy the way they draw in that MS Paint pixel brush. I admire styles that use their lines strategically to convey things like clothing folds or eye bags or volume for the hair. You're looking at a bunch of pixels, but it still tricks your brain into believing these are figures. They do this so well because they're originally proficient in flipnote animations. You can see it in some of their other music videos that they make their canvas small enough to visibly see the pixels they use, which kind of feels like a callback to how they got their start. I've tested the waters with the style myself, and I fully intend to make an entire comic just completely in the MS Paintbrush to pay homage. Who am I kidding? I'm just a complete ripoff. Guards, take this shameless fangirl away. That's me. Carriann is a slightly newer artist that I referenced, but that's because I wasn't entirely entrenched in my personal story's brain rot quite yet. I gotta be honest, I was so ready to finish this video in like 2 months, but having to recreate this style completely halted my progress on this. They draw digitally, but the way they texture and layer their brushes kind of make it look like a watercolor piece. You can specifically see it in the hair because if I were to describe it as if you were actually painting, they saturate the top of the head with the most amount of color and let it fade the farther into the hair strands it gets. They use black, white, and gray in their pieces a lot, but their use of the red accent color for little details with a specific character's hair is gorgeous to me. Oddly enough, when I scroll through their art, you see multiple colors used for accents, like different shades of blue and yellow, but the red, man, like it forces your eye to look directly at it. The gray and black backgrounds make the shade of red easy on the eyes, instead of it insulting you in your face and spitting acid in your corneas for daring to look. I unfortunately didn't include this in my style study, but their backgrounds and frames are so elegant. They make all the characters they draw feel like they hold themselves with poise. The people you're looking at are important, but you're unprivy to their lives and can only stare on at the picture frames in a cathedral. Do cathedrals have picture frames? I think I should also note the catchlight they use is done fantastically. In my rendition, it's kind of dog butt, but the way they utilize it makes it feel like all of this is done on one layer. The background is gray, so then the light that comes from the background is gray, and then it gives things like my character's wraps that are completely dark and black some form and texture. Since a lot of their subjects are pale, they also use that gray to kind of blend with the face and the hair. I like the texture that it gives the face. This style had me using brushes I was wildly unfamiliar with, but I'm glad I got the practice in. I don't think it could be confused for their style at all, and I definitely could have done better by giving this a frame or something. That composition, oh my, I'm swimming in gray. But I'm still proud of myself for finishing this, even though I really didn't want to. I adjusted my character design ever so slightly just so I can fit with the style better. I've chosen to tame her big dumb anime hair for this one. When drawing in CRRN style, I wanted to keep their unique proportions in mind. I'd consider the typical body type to be on the lankier side, with their legs being super fucking long, which is awesome because it reminds me of fashion designer sketches where they have longer appendages to make a lot of room for the clothing. They also make their necks longer and heads smaller than I would, so I had to fight against myself to make it as accurate as possible. Their body of work is very religiously inspired, and the story they've made involving the angels they draw is so sick. The character designs and clothing are so intricate, and the world they inhabit is so expansive and horrifying.
I absolutely love it, but I have no idea how they draw their characters as often as they do. I'm such a sucker for character designs, I couldn't dream of drawing more than once. Originally, I was going to keep this a sketch to pay homage to their ability to make thumbnails that look like finished artworks, but I decided to stick with it and do a fully rendered piece. I'm not a fan of anti-alias brushes, so it gave me a bit of anxiety to have to make super thin lines to meticulously color in, but I cheated and just used my sketch layer and erased any thicker bits. I couldn't really be lazy with the style though, because the hair— oh my god. Their hair rendering is so careful and so meticulous and so done with love. I don't know. My character's hair was soaked in blood, so I had to shade the brown, and the red, and the blood underneath her. Ah! It was actually pretty fun though, I can't lie. The way I achieve this amount of detail is to use the anti-alias brush so I can color pick between the pixels and get those colors that mix into each other. Shading skin in certain style is pretty fun too. I interpreted their method as taking a large, hard-edged brush with mid opacity, drawing on the part you need shaded, and blurring the edge that gets hit by the light source. Very fun, pretty similar to the way I do it. When studying their style, you notice their typical color palette leans towards white and black with accent shades of blue and or red. I chose red for this because I'm abnormal about that color, but you can see in the wraps around her arm and torso— what the fuck? But you can see in the wrap around her arm and torso that I gave it a hint of blue, because you'll see in these pieces that it isn't just straight black. I really like the incorporation of blue in this piece. I should really experiment with that more. I had no idea what to do with the background, I'm gonna be honest. Originally, it was just gonna be this like artistically simplistic blood, but I didn't really like it. So I said fuck it and added sparkles because they like them, so I could definitely get away with it. The background became a night sky, and I kept the blood splatter because it took too damn long for me to just delete it. And right towards the very end, I added some text because a lot of their pieces also involve typography, which I think is really cool. It kind of gives this like finality to the piece, like it's part of some project. So having a bunch of text on the screen, I don't know, it makes it look cool. I added song lyrics. They add actual smart things in their stuff though, so I think I definitely could have improved on the composition if I had stuck with it just a little bit longer, been less afraid of drawing a hand, but here we are. I like how the end result came out, and you should definitely check out CRRN's art. This is nowhere near as cool as it gets. When talking about Nuqelear's art, I will be referring to their art styles and strategies in present tense, but for anyone who doesn't know, this artist has passed away in 2023 and are dearly missed by their friends and family that knew them. While I may make jokes, my intention is still to show how beautiful their art was and how it affected me in my art journey. May they rest in peace. I really thought this style would be the easiest to draw when building the format for this video. Ooh, I'm gonna draw on the styles of my favorite artists, and I've done studies for this before, so it'll be fun. This one kicked my ass! To say all of their lines are completely straight would be wrong, because they do use very subtle and very deliberate curves, but the draw of their style is how sharp it is from afar. It looks like every brushstroke was done with a line tool. It really does go to show how steady and confident their lines are. Mine aren't, though! You can literally see how many lines it takes to get to my— okay, as I'm writing the script, I'm realizing I didn't even draw a sketch. I just went in with a dream. Kids don't be like me. No wonder they look like cardboard cutouts. Jesus. I've always been very attracted to sharp styles, and I'd take any techniques they could give me because the final result always seemed to impress me much more. Using simple, straight lines that wouldn't belong in a realism piece made me realize that cheating some details for the sake of a nicer silhouette, fun lines, and a composition that guides the eye more directly is way more fun for me in my art process. Anyway, the line art definitely threw me for a very sharp loop, but the coloring wasn't the part that I anticipated being a struggle too. I love their color choice. The way they blend their colors with specific textured brushes they use are combined to make things look like paintings, and are contrasted by the stark white in the background. It's super fascinating, and only something I noticed when scrolling through their art. Which, by the way, if you plan to do the same, viewer discretion for suggested themes and other art you wouldn't want to open in public settings. Few and far between, but it is there. The specific part I struggled with the most is the hair, go figure. They use this big gleam of light in this jagged polygon shape, with the color getting less saturated the farther from the light it gets. But I think me drawing that part first was a mistake, because that's the process I'm used to, but they most likely work backwards to get to that big pop of color while using the same color blending techniques to make the whole thing look uniform, like coloring the skin tone in the hair. I personally couldn't find a video of them drawing from start to finish, but if that exists, it'll definitely help me out the next time I study. Also, hey look, I drew my cousin Sona in this one too. Ending the segment with a bang, and even included our little goobers on the side as a style 4.5, because I really like their chibi drawings and wanted to take a crack at it. If I had to describe my style now, anyway. It's never really been consistent to call it a cel-shaded style, because I like to experiment with other brushes and lighting effects often. It hasn't been consistently messy enough to call it chaotic, and not consistently neat enough to call it refined. Maybe edgy, but sometimes not. Maybe muted, but sometimes not. Hell, the way I draw pupils changes for just about every piece.
My style is influenced by so many wonderful artists and so many old practices that I'm still trying to shake off. I think if I really tried to narrow my biggest influences down, it'd be the 4 artists I talked about today. The Bungo Stray Dogs pipeline let me fall in love with the way Wooma pushes her expressions and unique stylization strategies for her faces, clothing, and hair. Being introduced to panty and stocking so early on, 1, was not good, but 2, let me appreciate the ways artists like Nuqelear utilize their line work for strong silhouette clarity and simplifying complicated clothing and folds into easily understandable shapes. Soul Eater's goth kids paved the way for my interest in gothic themes and let me appreciate the ornate details Carriann uses within their pieces, enough for me to try my hand at them for my own. It's a silly one, but Oron made me want to push my poses and find more artists to give me ideas for them. And CRRN is one of those artists who I reference often for pose ideas. These aren't the only shows that have helped me find what I like now, and these definitely aren't the encompassing reasons I like all of these artists, but they, along with the other media I've consumed throughout my life, have melded between each other to create one incredibly inconsistent amalgamation that is my art. It's messy, it's clean, it's edgy, it's cute, it's completely incoherent at times, but it's mine. And we all know the joke that artists don't like their own art, which is true, I will admit. But I can still recognize how much blood, sweat, and tears I poured into learning my craft, and I'm very proud of Little Lemon for sticking with it. I'm even more proud of my cousin for developing her style as much as she has so quickly, and it's because of her own inspirations pushing her to find art techniques, creating a unique way to apply them to her pieces, and asking her big cousin questions for the best way to go about doing that. That's Lemon style. My style. Thank you for sticking with this mess of a video if you did. It kind of shifted gears to a talky speed paint last minute, but hopefully it's coherent enough to understand where I get my ideas from and why I make the decisions in my art that I do. Like I said, this isn't everything, but maybe you'll learn more about me and my work if you subscribe and keep up with the other videos I intend to make about my art and my characters. This is my first official video with the intent to keep it going, and this took fucking forever to do. But it was so fun and exciting, and I've already got like 6 other projects ideas in the chamber, so I'll see you soon with whatever I make next.